Hey guys, Bix Weir, Andy Scheckman with an emergency meeting. We're still trying to wrap our heads around what's going on with Silicon Valley Bank. Andy's been getting calls about silver off the hook. Andy, first, before we do anything, can you get your hands on silver? Is there anything in inventory? If not, how long would it take? Where do we stand?
I have a lot of inventory, and it's crazy. Bixie, I've been talking about for a long time the market would define itself by an inability to source product, and it was that way for the last couple of years as we've had delivery delays, increased premiums, shortages, competing with the rest of the world for silver, which has taken on a monetary renaissance, and in a world that is expanding in its uses industrially for silver, and an asset that is depleting in nature. I mean, the powder keg of reasons why to own silver have grown exponentially, and then I always figured this would manifest itself in difficulty getting product, and it had been the case for the last 36 months until recently, where for the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, maybe 3 or 4, premiums have come way down unexplainably. And I was caught off guard, but I didn't see it. I mean, I was buying stuff right before the beginning of the year that I had to pay for in October and November, that I was paying $2-3 an ounce more for than I was selling it for retail, when 90 and 120 days later it showed up in my warehouse. Very weird situation, and that's bad for companies like myself who can't hedge the premium. And then they came down and down and down and down to, over the last few weeks, I've been telling people that this is the best availability and the lowest premiums we've seen really since December, February, let's say February 2020, by far.
Let me run something by you. With the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, people are starting to understand just how much the FDIC can insure, and then what happens to the rest. I would venture to say that you're going to get a lot of calls with people who have over $250,000 in a bank, because they don't know where to go. They don't want to put it in another bank. And I mean, gold and silver obviously would be the number one call outside of cash. I think
we are getting those calls by the droves.
You have been?
We have been all weekend long, and continuing this morning. Emails, texts. A lot of my clients have my text. All of my brokers are saying they're getting blown up right now. And the funny thing, Bix, honest to God, that I'm doing the same thing. And I know my wife looked at me like I was crazy. I mean, I'm a guy that is 95% invested in precious metals and owns one of the largest metals companies in North America. And I'm buying more because I'm afraid leaving my money in the bank. For the first time in my entire life, I'm really afraid. What's going to happen if one of these banks pulls down others with it, and the daisy chain of events?
They don't even have to. I mean, truthfully, where we are now, from what I can tell, we had the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank on Friday. It took 24 to 48 hours for that to happen. In the age of digital everything, these things happen fast. There's lines around about 10 different banks right now trying to get money out at ATMs. A lot of ATMs are having technical issues.
Right.
The biggest people to understand the new paradigm we're in, that they didn't understand before, they're supposed to be the smartest people in finance, are those people in charge of money for corporations. You only get $250,000 of FDIC insurance on corporate bank accounts. Everything over is 100% risk of who you're invested in. Now, with Silicon Valley Bank, what I believe they're doing is they're going to take a bid. They are taking bids right now and are going to sell whatever's left of Silicon Valley Bank to the biggest bidder. And then from that money, it goes into kind of a bankruptcy type of allocation. Who's first in line to get the money? And then so on down the line. People aren't going to get 100% of their money back. The FDIC insured part, yes, it's $250 per person. You can get around that with beneficiaries a little bit on a personal account, not on corporate accounts. So you've got every risk manager in corporate America and around the world every finance manager in corporate America and around the world saying, oh my God, we have billions and billions of dollars that are completely at risk at this moment. Monday is going to be a free for all, if you ask me, of these gigantic. I mean, they control trillions of dollars. They're going to say, I can't believe I never thought that my money was at risk by holding it in XYZ bank. There's 18,000 regional banks that are supposedly on the hook right now. And it trickles down to the JP Morgans of the world, the Wells Fargos of the world. How fast, I don't know. But with the speed of Silicon Valley Bank, I think they were 18th or 16th, 18th largest bank. With the speed that happened, that's how fast it could happen with every bank. So Janet Yellen came on to this morning, gave no reassurances. She said, we put in pretty solid parameters of what the banks can do since 2008, and the regulators are on top of this. That means nothing.
She also said there will be no bailout of
well, they can't. That's one of the key things of Dodd-Frank. And to me, the guy who's been screaming, the banks are going to crash, the banks are going to crash for 20 years. This is all part of the plan. This didn't come out of the blue. This is part of the plan. They locked off all the outs for the Fed, for the banks, in order to destroy the old system and get something new in. The question is, how fast is it going to happen? I think next week will be ugly and vicious. And once, I have always said, people won't wake up until their ATMs, they can't get money out of their ATMs. It happened in Cyprus, in Greece. It's going to happen here. I think next week, we're going to have a lot of people running to their bank, and that brings out the news. And the news is going to say, oh, no, don't panic. The Fed's going to back up everything. It's not going to stop people. They're going to go to the banks. The banks are going to shut their doors. So my question,
if you've been paying close enough attention, they've been lying to us forever, and everything they tell us is not right. It's a lie, and they pivot away from it. Oh, there is no inflation. Inflation is okay. It's transitory. Then it's structural. Then it's peaked, and now it's reemerged. Or the subprime crisis is contained. Everything they say is about damage control, and it is to further the game as long as they possibly can. But yeah, I think this is very real. They had $27 billion in derivatives. What does that mean? Who's attached to the other side of those derivatives? And a lot of these things seem to take a little bit of time. When you look at FTX failing, and then a month and 2 months later, you see Silvergate fail, and now you see this bank fail, and all of the counterparties that were connected to them and all the corporations that were connected to them. What happens? What's the fallout? And the systemic risk. And I go back to that meeting of the November meeting of the FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Board, who said there's going to be bank runs and bail-ins, and the public needs to know this, that bailouts are illegal from Dodd-Frank, but bail-ins are the new name of the game, and they need to know this. But if we tell them, it'll lead to unintended consequences. That meeting leaked out to YouTube. I know you've covered it, but think about it. They told us, and obviously it's not going to be immune to just two banks. This is obviously just the very beginning. And so, look, if I'm feeling that I want to pull my money out of the bank and buy more gold and silver, what does that say for everyone else? I'm not the poster child for Finance 101. I am not diversified, but I don't know where else to put my money. And when you can't feel safe and sleep well at night with your money in the bank, I'll tell you this, Bix. The one phrase that I've gotten more than anything over the past 2 years, I swear to God, the one phrase that I've got more than anything is, I don't want my money in the bank. I just sold my house. I don't want my money in the bank. I just sold my business. I don't want my money in the bank. Us hard asset people and the people who listen to you and this community understand that. But what happens when we see a proliferation out into the main street? And with states like Missouri and Wyoming and Idaho and Kansas and all of these states that are now not only proposing, and some have accepted gold and silver as legal tender for use in all debts, public and private. At what point does the public, we're starting to see it with the states, when does the public wake up to this? And that's when I think getting a hold of silver is going to be really difficult. I don't say this to incentivize people to run out and buy it. I say it because in my soul, I believe it to be true. That's why I've talked about the bleed down from LBMA, the bleed down from COMEX, India importing 304 million ounces. It's the amount of silver out there when you realize it's the most shorted metal, the largest concentrated short position of any commodity traded on COMEX. It's the pimple on the elephant's ass when you talk about the amount of money out there. And it's also probably the most compelling investment case I've ever seen in my life. So at some point, and I think you see more of this contagion, it'll happen rapidly. People will wake up to, there are very few exits. Like you said, they've blocked everyone. They've made it impossible for resolution. Well, what's our resolution? Our resolution is to be a contrarian, get the hell out of the banks and put your money and take physical possession, as you always say, of something sound and stable, and be your own bank, be your own 401k, be your own insurance company. And that's the best advice I could give anyone. It's what I do myself.
I agree 1,000%. I did want to touch on a couple things. Bail-ins. I always said, and still believe, there will never be bail-ins as per the bank says we're going to take your money. It'll be what is happening at SB Silicon Valley Bank is what will probably happen, which is the FDIC covers $250,000 per person. The rest is sold off. Let's say they get $100 billion or $50 billion for the remainder of SBV. Of that, it's more like a bankruptcy. It's not really a bail-in. Of that money is distributed according to bankruptcy law, because it would be a bankruptcy if the FDIC takes you over. And they have priority as to which debt gets paid first, and then whatever's left over gets spread out between the probably the depositors. I don't know if the depositors are first or last, but the reality is there are laws, there are bankruptcy laws. I don't know if this goes through the bankruptcy laws. I know that the Fed spent a lot of time on wind downs and how that could be done. The big thing I do know is that there are people sweating right now who run finances for corporations who have money in. For example, the latest is First Republic Bank. I actually have $700 in First Republic Bank. Everybody's saying Monday they're going to close their doors. There's lines around the block at First Republic Bank. There's about 10 banks who are very similar situated than Silicon Valley Bank. And then there's 18,000 regional banks that are all potentially going under. If, let's just say a couple hundred of these goes down, that means JP Morgan's gone, Citibank is gone, and everything is gone. One thing I want to remind everybody, there is no SIPC insurance. That's a fraud. That is brokerage houses saying we're going to self-insure for all our friends. They have $4 billion in the SIPC insurance, and they insure $120 trillion of stocks and bonds.
So yeah, and there's 128 billion in the FDIC insuring 9 trillion in deposits. And you're right. First Republic Bank was down 16.5%. Their share price was on Friday, and PacWest Bancorp was down 25%. This will be the beginning of many others that are systemically tied together, just like they told us in their November meeting.
I think as far as the FDIC, that is backed by the U.S. government. SIP is not. SIP is completely separate, but the FDIC is backed by the government. So the government can print money to refill the coffers of FDIC insurance, which they did in 2008. I think they gave them 300 billion or something. Now, then it gets to, will our government still be standing to give the FDIC money? I say that's 50-50 chance that if the banks collapse, that these crazy people we have leading our lives are still in power, which means you won't get anything if you have FDIC insurance. Get your physical silver in your own possession. Gold is, the more I understand the difference between gold and silver, the more I'm like, I know there's so much gold at a certain price. There's literally, I think there's over 1 million tons of gold that can be, say at $5,000 an ounce, that can be easily gotten, definitely out of the banks of the Colorado River, but all around the world. At a certain price, gold becomes very easy to mine, shall we say. Even the hard little specks to pick out of the sand at $5,000 an ounce, everybody's going to be running to the sand because that's identifiable gold. There's not that much identifiable silver anywhere. I mean, it's just another thing. The difference between gold and silver, you talked about the COMEX short position. I believe since they've been hiding the data for the last month, I believe they're almost out of it. The big banks have pretty much gotten rid of their silver short position.
They have, you're right.
And it's covered up at the OCC data as well, where we used to see Bank of America growing. the gold and silver in those the last 3 months that they've recorded have dropped just gigantic, like 50 billion every quarter. And it is basically the banksters getting out of their short positions so that they're not caught with their pants down.
Well, I know as per the February 25th COT report, they had lowered their silver short position to the lowest it's been since 2014. And we haven't seen where we are up to date, but you're right. You can see, you've done such an amazing job of talking about all this stuff for so long. And I know you've always talked about, in the end, they'll try to get out, and who's going to be left holding the bag? It's these hedge funds that'll be left holding the bag, and the commercial banks will get out. And I think that's what they're trying to do right now. And just bringing down these massive institutions. When you talk about contagion and counterparty risk, it's incredible, not just in the banks and the brokerages, but in a place like the COMEX market. And as Ted Butler was talking about in his latest article, he said, he drew the analogy to how fast this happened with Silicon Valley Bank in a matter of literally minutes or in a few hours. He said the same thing will happen when there's a realization of what's going on with the silver market and the pickle that they're in. And yeah, so I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And that's why I say the things I do about availability in silver. Now, since we've been talking, I had one person who just said, order me 14,000 silver kangaroos. This is what we're getting. That's not something you get on a Sunday typically. This is just one person. And I've been on the phone all morning since I woke up talking to people. So there are a lot of people out there that are very, very concerned. And these are just the people who understand what's going on. When the panic comes, when the rush comes, getting available product will be very difficult. It has defined my career for the last 3 years. For the last 3 years, Bix, we had to buy stuff 90 to 120 days in advance and pay the highest premiums that we've ever paid, which are not hedgeable in 33 years. So this is a sweet spot. And ironically, I don't think it's ever been more important. So many of the things that you and I talk about are out there in the future, and you have to kind of use your mind's eye to see how it all comes together. And while it makes so much sense what you say, you still have to take a little bit of supposition. You got to think about it. What could happen? Could this happen? Now you're seeing it happen, and you've been telling us this is going to happen. And I'm telling you that while there is great availability right this minute, it's going to change. We had 75,000 silver maple leafs a week ago. They're gone now. So how fast can it go? It can go very fast. And that's before the public really realizes there's a problem. And what about when there's a problem on COMEX, when there's a run on it and the industrial bars disappear? As Ted will tell you, there's a major shortage in them already.
Well, what do you think Elon Musk, who has the most money in the world, where does he have this money? If it's in a bank, even Elon Musk and his finance guy are going, holy shit, what do we do? Let's go buy gold and silver. Obviously, he needs silver for his business to run. I don't want to take too long today because I want you to get back to work. My recommendation is always ask Andy what he's got in inventory that's ready to go. If you guys are ready to pay, wire him the money, ask him what he's got ready to go and buy that. I think that's the best bet, especially in these times of turmoil. We've seen brokers and dealers and especially online people go out of business in frantic times and people being left holding the bag. I've worked with Andy for a zillion years now. I trust him with all my heart. If he doesn't think he can get it, he's not going to sell it to you. So
that is my promise to you, Bix, and I will make it very well known to every one of my brokers, all of which are my very, very, very close personal friends, many of them going back to grade school. When I say friends, I mean friends, not because I like my employees. They're my brothers and sisters, people that I've worked with or have been friends with outside of work my whole life. I will tell them all to be incredibly upfront because things are very fluid. If your people call us or send us an email at info@milesfranklin requesting a price sheet, and the premiums today are going way up again. In fact, way up. And it's just happened like that. I will not make sure that everyone is very transparent in terms of availability, delivery time, premiums, etc. But I'm telling you, things are changing right now. Now, is this Is this just reactionary? I don't know, but the market is afraid for how it's going to open up here tomorrow morning. And, it opens up in Asia in 4 hours. I guess we'll see what the spot price does and how they try to damage control that here in the West. But
we don't, on the road to Ruta, we don't even look at price. I mean, if everything goes by the way they usually do it, they'll slam the price of gold. They'll let it go up a little, then they'll slam it just to keep things under control. I have no doubt they'll do that again. But at the end of the day, these people who are controlling the prices won't be there forever. And I think when their banks go down, and if they aren't a bank, most of them are banks, we have a whole new world coming. Get your physical silver in your possession ASAP, no matter what the price does on tonight or Monday or Tuesday or anytime. If you think that your money is at risk, get physical precious metals in your own possession. You won't think your money's at risk anymore. Andy, I couldn't
agree more.
I am just overwhelmed at the things you've done for the road to Ruta people over all these years. And so many people have sent me emails saying, I'm sitting in my lawn chair and I don't like that this is happening, but you were right. I knew it was going to happen too. So I got my medal from Andy and I'm sitting here just fine and dandy on my stack of silver. For everybody out there, God bless you and hang in there. This is the best thing for humanity at the end of the day. We need to get rid of these criminals who control our lives. And this is the best way to do it. Destroy the monetary system. So
Bix, you're a legend, and everything you say echoes with me and so many people out there. You're an amazing guy, and thank you for the kind words. And I couldn't be more proud to help represent the folks on the road to Ruta and call you a friend. So I'm sure it's going to be a busy week. If we need to jump back on in the next day or two and pick up where we left off, I'll be looking forward to that. Until then, I hope you and everyone out there stays well.
Hey, everybody, contact Andy at info@milesfranklin.com, MILESFRANKLIN.com, or 800-822-8080. Is that it? I think that's it.
952-929-7006 is even a little bit better.
Okay, say that one again.
952-929-7006. Everyone's got a cell phone with free long distance these days. It's better. So you'll get through right away. Send an email, info@milesfranklin, request a price sheet, ask any questions that you have, and I'm sure it's going to be a busy week, but we'll get back to you quickly.
All right. Thank you for checking in, Andy, and we'll talk to you next week.
Stay well, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.